Hello everyone, welcome to the Detroit Children's Museum and another one of our museum's videos. Today's content area is social studies. My name is Mr. C. Behind the camera is Mr. Don, our curator here at the museum. Well, let's begin. Well, as you see on this beautiful display that Mr. Don created are several of our artifacts from the American Revolution period of our history. We have things like forged metal nails. We have a copy or replica of the flag that Betty Ross sewn or stitched together. We have continental currency, okay? So we have many things, and this is not all. Downstairs in our museum's archives, we have many things from this period of history. So if you're studying the American Revolution period of our history, the war, etc., that time period, please consider borrowing these artifacts we place into kits, plastic tubs that are sealed nicely with information about them. They're labeled, they tell you when they came to the museum, and there's some background information on most of the pieces. So we are constantly learning here, as well as you would be, okay? So consider, contact Mr. Don, myself, who's Mr. C, and we'll get these items to you and your students wherever you're teaching, okay? Today we're going to focus on two of the items, all right? We're going to take you through our beautifully done Analyze an Artifact or Object chart. We've used it before in some of our videos, you've seen it. And keep watching those videos. I see they are well watched. I appreciate that. So does Mr. Don. We're going to focus on this object here, one of many things we have from this time period, and this object here. Okay? No guessing what these objects are yet. What do you think this is? Beginning the chart at the top, what do you think this is? A little more difficult to do such a thing when you're just looking at a video, but we encourage you to borrow these, to place them in a display case, to use them anywhere that you're teaching. What do you think this is? We'll kind of do these together, okay? As we go through this document. Observe the parts. You know, what I like about this document, I've stated this many times, is that this is all-inclusive. Everyone can participate in this activity. It's a very nice way to learn. Well, I was told by our curator here, Mr. Ralph. We have a part-time volunteer here currently, and Mr. Ralph has been here 52 years. And he said, you know, this document is a nice way to introduce everyone into the process of accessioning an item. How do we determine the parts of an item? How do we describe an item? How do we observe? And what do we gain by observing an item? How do we determine how it was used, especially if we don't have much documentation about it? So this is a great way of learning that process. It's called the accessioning process. It's really cataloging, keeping track of all the items that we have here. So in the next part here, we observe the parts of each item. And we determine by circling what you think they're made of. Do you think these are made of bone, ceramic pottery, some type of metal or paper? And you simply circle that. You see, anyone can do that, or everyone can do that, right? And if you think it's made of something that's not listed there on the chart, then add it. We laminate these that we use, and we'll include these in kits, our lending kits, so that you can just use it with a small group of children or a large group, doesn't matter, and use a dry erase marker to make some markings. Then you just reuse it, save some paper. How do you think these objects feel? So if you were to feel these, and again, I know you're not actually touching this, but what do you think its texture would be if you could feel something like this? You can see the value of having the items right there with the children in the schools. They can actually do this, right? Or actually get closer to these items. How do you think this feels? What do you think this texture is? And the descriptive words listed there are light, smooth, rough, hard, heavy, and there's some space there to write your own words of describing its texture. for both of these items. What are the colors of the objects? What is the color of the objects? And you would list those there. What is the shape of the object? Similar to texture, the shape is simply how it's formed previously, right? What do we do when we're looking at something we've never seen before? Or maybe just seen once? We think about what we've done previously, and we try to use that to get some information or some understanding of what's something new. Okay, so using those senses that you have. What is the size of the object? And there you simply check. Is it small, like a coin? Is it medium, like a basketball? Or is it large, like a car? And you would check what you think the size of the objects are, these two here. What are the three words that describe the object? Well, all those things that you've listed, all those things that you've circled, you can take three of them and use them to describe this object. And then you do the same thing with this object. Kind of odd, isn't it? I don't think I've ever seen this before, or ever seen this, okay? Be very careful. Some of these are very old. And I didn't mention earlier, but these are from the 18th century, some of these pieces. Where do you think you could find out more information about the object or the people who used it? You know, everyone's going to say the internet, and that's certainly valid, right? You're going to Google something, but what would you Google if you don't know what this is, right? I told you what period of history it's from, and I know many of us are studying that period of history in our classrooms. So you could also ask us. Have your teachers email us. Have your teachers borrow, or teachers, please borrow these items so that you together with the children can learn more about these beautiful artifacts. What do you think the object was used for? You take a guess. Now, we'll tell you this about this one. This end used to come off. What do you think was inside, or how do you think that was used? What do you think it is? Now, first glance, you've seen this before, at least this section of it. But what do you think this object was used for? Because we may be familiar with this end, right? But when you get to this end, a little bit different, right? Then let's say a pair of scissors. It's not scissors, okay? Interesting stuff. Who do you think would have used the object? So think about that period of history in the colonial days, 18th century, around the time of the American Revolution. What does the object tell us about the time period when it was made and used? Do we still use these objects today? This object right here, did you guess what it is? Was your hypothesis correct? It's a powder horn, okay? One of the nice pieces we have in our collection of American Revolution artifacts is this replica of George Washington's sidepiece, or sidearm. We don't loan this and the rifle here you see in front of me out to the schools, but we do have it in our collection to share with students that visit the museum and their teachers, of course. But this is a replica of George Washington's sidearm. So with the powder horn, okay, this is called a powder horn, and this is from the days that George Washington walked this planet, all right, was alive. They would fill the gunpowder into the powder horn, and then while they're loading the gun, they would use the gunpowder, put it in the proper way to arm the weapon for use, to fire it, okay? So this is a powder horn. It's made of a horn of some type of animal. My guess is cow, okay? And yes, cows do have horns. The other piece that we featured a bit earlier, is this. I know what you're saying, it's a pair of scissors. No, no, it's not a pair of scissors, but was held in a similar fashion. It certainly looks like scissors. You held it this way, right? But it's not scissors, all right? Think about what they used for their lighting back 300 years ago. Did they have electric lights? No, we did not have electric lights until Thomas Alva Edison and Lewis Howard Latimer looked them up. They're interesting people. This, what did they use for lighting then? Oil lamps. Right, they sure did. But this was used for another source of lighting, to snuff the light out. Now you know what it is, right? The candle. They use candles. So when the candle was lit, you wanted to snuff it out or, put out the fire, go to bed maybe, you don't want the candle being lit for the rest of the night. You would place this on the candle and snuff it. And then this here could help you cut the wick so that you have enough wick for the process of lighting and working to begin or to continue. And then this here, this pointed end here, could be used to clean up the wax that maybe had dripped along the side of the candle. Okay? Very cool. 300 years old. Can you beat that? That's amazing. So it's a candle snuffer. And it comes on its own tray. Very fancy, right? And proper. Very cool. So anyway, we appreciate you joining us today for our video on our American Revolution period lending kit. All these items plus more. We have more than these in our collection, but specifically to enjoy the video, to learn from us as we learn from you continuously. Please put us to work. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Mr. C. Behind the camera is Mr. Don. Goodbye.